You wake up in Germany in 1923 with 1 million marks in your pocket. Yesterday, that was a fortune. Today, the bakery downstairs wants 200 billion for a loaf of bread. Your million would not buy the crumbs off the counter. Here is how deep the hole goes. In 1914, one American dollar cost about 4 marks. By November 1923, $1 costs over 4 trillion. Not billion, trillion. The same money divided by a trillion in 9 years. So stand in that bakery, holding your worthless million, and ask the better question. A currency does not just drop dead. Somebody kills it. The suspects. A war, a peace treaty, 2 assassins, a foreign army, a central banker, and a man getting rich off the wreckage. Let's take them one at a time. Start where detectives start. The last day, the victim was healthy. August the 4th, 1914, the first week of Germany's war. That same day, new banking laws quietly cut the mark loose from gold. Gold payments are suspended. New loan banks issue paper backed by nothing, and in the Reichsbank's books, that paper still counts as gold. The magic show begins on day 1. Then comes the bill for the war itself. Every government has 2 options: taxes, which voters hate, or borrowing, which voters do not understand. The Kaiser and Parliament choose borrowing unanimously and cover less than 14% of the war's cost with taxes. 9 times the government passes the hat, and ordinary Germans buy war bonds. You are patriotic. You buy some too. Remember that. The Treasury Secretary spells out the plan without embarrassment. The enemies started this war, so let them drag this lead weight of billions through the decades. Germany loses. By the end, the money in circulation has grown nearly 7-fold, and prices have more than doubled. The gun is loaded, but wartime inflation is not yet hyperinflation. Somebody still has to pull the trigger. May the 5th, 1921. The Allies hand Germany the London Ultimatum. Reparations are set at 132 billion gold marks, and there are 6 days to accept or troops occupy the industrial heartland. In the summer of 1921, Germany makes its first billion gold mark payment, largely by printing paper marks and using them to buy foreign currency at any price. It is roughly like paying your rent by selling your own promises on a street corner. The mark slides from under 100 to the dollar to 330 by the end of the year. Case closed? Not quite. By the winter of 1919, before anyone even knew the reparations number, the mark had already lost 90% of its value against the dollar. The treaty beat a patient who was already sick, and the following summer, the patient takes a bullet. Literally. June the 24th, 1922. Walter Rathenau, Germany's foreign minister, rides to work in an open car on the same route he takes every morning. Another car pulls alongside. Men from a far-right terror group open fire at close range, and he dies in the street. He is murdered because he is Jewish, and because he is the face of actually paying the reparations. Millions pour into the streets to mourn him. The markets mourn differently. He was the man telling the world that Germany could hold itself together. With him gone, confidence snaps. In midsummer 1922, a dollar costs around 320 marks. By December, 7,400. For the case file, the hyperinflation begins in the summer of 1922, not 1923. Shops reprice weekly, then daily. You spend your pay the day it arrives. The word savings starts to sound like your grandfather's vocabulary. And just when you think it cannot accelerate any further, a foreign army crosses the border. January the 11th, 1923. French and Belgian troops occupy the Ruhr, the coal and steel heart of Germany, over missed reparations deliveries, not money this time, but timber and coal. Around 70,000 soldiers hold the region, up to 100,000 at the peak. Berlin cannot fight back, so it orders something remarkable. Passive resistance. Miners, railwaymen and civil servants across the Ruhr walk off the job, and the state promises to pay their wages while they do nothing. Noble, defiant, and entirely unfunded, so the wages come off a printing press. The fire was already burning. The Ruhr turns it into a firestorm. Your cousin in Essen is paid to stay at home, in money that loses value while it is being handed to him. That winter, you learn the first rule of 1923. Money is ice in your hand. It buys today what it will not buy tomorrow. By summer, the ice is steam. But the occupation did not invent the printing press. It handed a fresh excuse to the man who owned one. His name is Rudolf Havenstein, head of the Reichsbank since 1908. A career Prussian lawyer, not an economist. By all accounts, honest, dutiful, and tireless, which is exactly what makes him tragic. Havenstein believes the inflation comes from outside, the reparations, the collapsing exchange rate. So the bank's duty, as he sees it, is simply to print enough money to keep up with the new prices. Prices rise, so he prints more, so prices rise. In July 1922, with inflation past 100% a year, his bank is still lending at 5%. Anyone can borrow marks, buy something real, and repay in confetti. Here is your life under him. In the autumn of 1923, you are paid twice a day. At noon, families wait at the factory gates, load the morning wages into suitcases and wheelbarrows, and run to the shops before the afternoon prices land. There is a story everyone told, probably a legend, but it catches the moment. A wheelbarrow of cash is left outside a shop. The thief tips out the money and steals the wheelbarrow. At the peak, prices double roughly every 3 to 4 days. More than 130 private printing firms and 30 paper mills are working for the Reichsbank, and it is still not enough, so towns and companies start printing their own emergency money. Paper becomes wallpaper, children's building blocks, and kindling. People say burning it is cheaper than buying firewood. Havenstein is printing his currency to death with a completely clear conscience. But while your world burns, somebody is warming his hands on it. Here is the ugly secret of 1923. This was not a flood that drowned everyone equally. It was a transfer. Whoever owed money won because the debts dissolved. The biggest debtor of all was the German state, whose internal war debt simply evaporated. Whoever owned real things, land, factories, machines, won. And nobody won bigger than Hugo Stinnes. Stinnes borrowed paper by the wagon load, bought mines, mills, newspapers, and ships, then repaid the loans in currency that had turned to confetti in the meantime. Germans called him the inflation king. When he dies in April 1924, his empire spans some 4,500 companies. And the losers? Look in the mirror. Those war bonds you bought in 1914 are honored to the letter, in marks that will not buy a postage stamp. The savers, the pensioners, the careful families who did everything they were told are wiped out, while borrowers and speculators walk away rich. That wound does not heal in 1923. Hold on to it. So, is Stinnes the killer? No. He is the man looting the corpse. To find the killer, watch The Cure. It tells you what the disease was. The Cure begins in late September 1923, when the new Chancellor, Gustav Stresemann, in office barely 6 weeks, calls off the resistance in the Ruhr. Half the country hates him for it. Then, on the 8th and 9th of November, in Munich, an agitator named Adolf Hitler fires a pistol into a beer hall ceiling, proclaims a national revolution, and marches some 2,000 men into the city, where police stop them within hours. Hold that thought. Because 6 days later the real revolution arrives, and it is made of paper. A new currency, the Rentenmark. What backs it is not gold. There is not enough. Officially, it is a mortgage on all of Germany's farmland and industry. And it works. 1 Rentenmark trades for 1 trillion old marks, and the dollar is fixed at 4.2, exactly its 1914 value, a deliberate nod to a lost world. Within weeks comes what Germans call the miracle. Prices stop climbing. Goods reappear in shop windows, farmers accept paper again. And Havenstein dies of a heart attack on the 20th of November, 1923. The very day the old mark's rate is fixed for the last time. The man and his currency stop on the same day. So who killed the mark? The war that loaded the gun. The treaty that squeezed the trigger. The assassins who shattered confidence. The occupation that demanded a firestorm. The banker who believed printing was his duty. The speculators who bet against their own money. Nobody killed it with a single blow. A currency dies when everybody stops believing in it. And everybody, one at a time, stopped. Now, about that beer hall. Hitler is sentenced to 5 years for treason, serves about 9 months, and uses them to write a book. Here is what most retellings get wrong. The hyperinflation did not put him in power. In the 1928 elections, his party polled under 3%. The breakthrough came in the early 1930s, during the opposite disease, deflation, austerity, and mass unemployment. What 1923 did was slower and quieter. It ruined the middle class, humiliated the republic, and taught millions of people that the rules could betray them. A trauma on a timer, not a trigger. One last thing. The Rentenmark that saved Germany was backed by a mortgage nobody could ever have collected. It was belief printed on paper. The thing that died in the old mark is the exact thing that brought the new one to life. Money is a story a country tells itself. And 1923 is what happens when a country stops mid-sentence.